Tell us a little bit about the country that you are killing it in.
Where I feel a little bit the American market and also right now in Asia is more a little bit politically driven.
One thing that I think I've been questioning myself is cryogenic treatment, something that you guys do for some of your speakers. It's an upgrade, right? For a lot of, I don't think you offer it on every model, right? That's not something that's offered on the Baby X1s.
No, it's
that's
from,
offered
from
on
the new TCS and up.
Okay, so tell us why the upcharge being, I believe, 10-15%, right, on average, the upcharge. What goes into that process, or Lars can tell us, that makes it a 10-15% up? Because a lot of people don't understand it. So they want to know, why is it 10-15% more for that particular upgrade on your drivers? Why is that? Why does it? Is it the machinery that's needed? Is it the investment? Is it the amount of time? What is it?
It's for sure more labor work, much more, that any magnet motor system, any cone, you saw it in our freezer, is in a plastic bag with vacuum to make sure that there's nothing could harm it when it comes to humidity and so on. So there's much more labor work by doing this.
How many hours does it take to treat these drivers on average?
The process
Yes.
is like 24 hours down, stay 24 hours, 24 hours up. So 3 times 24 hours. So that's the time in the freezer, but of course the manual labor is less than that.
Right.
Yeah, but it takes time, and it is time consuming, and the failure rate is also there.
Oh, okay.
Some things can crack.
Oh, really?
When you put it in the freezer.
Yeah.
There is a lot of risk as well.
When you freeze something down to minus 196 degrees Celsius,
for those of you,
happen.
if you know what negative 196 Celsius is in Fahrenheit, please comment below and let me know.
It's cold.
It's cold as hell.
It's this cold. It's more than this cold.
It's really cold.
It's really cold.
So
no, it's the coldest thing we can actually create. So what happens is that it's so cold that the structure of the metals changes. It's so big forces involved in the freezing that it pushes alloying elements out instead of inside the crystal structure, outside the crystal structure. And that's why you get on copper 6 to 8% better conductivity. And it stays like that when it comes out.
And that results in what? What can the user expect when you treat the drivers like that?
When we have a copper ring that is used there to lock inductance and lower inductance, so the capability of that copper ring that with cryogenically treated is 6 to 8% better than it will be without the treatment. So it lowers inductance 6 to 8% more than it would without it.
And then after that, we go to the the option Silver Supreme Edition, which is your ultimate expression when it comes to loudspeaker design. This is where you come in and do, I like to say this all the time, an all-out assault on the wiring, on the crossover, you name it, on everything they can possibly upgrade. That's what that means, Silver Supreme Edition. Tell us a little bit of what goes into this process, upgrade.
Before we even started making speakers, Lars and I looked at each other and said, are we going to make speakers again? Because we just left Rido. And we agreed that we should not make speakers until we had something that was really a statement or a mark in the market or a technology that was so different and so profound and so different than what everybody else do. And this is where our insanity comes into play, because if you would ask Dynaudio, or if you would ask Scanspeak to do a driver where the cost of the magnet structure is maybe 10 times more than what they do, they would ask, do you get any more force out of it? No. What do you get? You get lower induction. Induction is not important, they would say. So when we were chasing efficiency and wanted to make speakers more efficient, we always tried to put more iron in. And yes, they got more efficient. You could measure that they were louder, they were more efficient. But did they sound better? No, they did not sound better.
In most cases, when you make the driver more efficient, the sound of voice.
So we concluded that iron is really a bad idea to have in a driver. And I studied for a long time, several years actually, on and off, of course, if there was anybody in the market making a speaker driver without any inductance. And one time,
Iron, you mean.
without any iron. And one time I saw a guy making a monopole with where he pushed two magnets together, and outside he had a field that was coming out from these two magnets. And I said to Lars, God, I wish it was me that got that idea.
Me who invented that.
That idea. So I actually tried to build that. But what was good on paper didn't work in reality, because the flux, instead of spreading out, just crept up. So you, in a little bit of distance between these two magnets squeezed together, there was no flux. Everything was lost. So it didn't work. But the idea was there that, and all of a sudden I said, gee, what if we take two pairs of that and then have the flux squeezed together being north poles and the flux squeezed together being south poles? Maybe we could stretch it out further. So it was really a development of an idea I saw by browsing patents that developed this magnet system. And once you have the idea and you simulate it and you see it flies, and then I said to Lars, now I know what we're going to do. We're going to do a magnet system without any iron. And Lars said,
the idea is to make the Burson speakers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then I made all the simulations. I didn't build anything, and then I went to a patent office in Aarhus and said, can we patent this? Is this a new idea? Is this novel? And we got a worldwide patent on that. So before we even started making the Burson speakers, we had this patent, and that was really the creation and the foundation. And in the beginning, I didn't have any material. It was just simulation with air in between. But I needed something to cool the voice coil, so I put copper in. And then I saw when I put a voice coil down, the inductance was reduced by a factor of 10. So instead of having 0.5 millihenry inductance flying up and down here, I had 0.05. And it was totally game changer, because induction is what creates the back EMF on drivers. That's what creates a poor working environment for amplifiers. So for the system, this with the copper rings was fantastic, because all of a sudden we built speakers where the room interaction was, never a non-issue, but it was far reduced compared to other speakers. They are much more room friendly than any other speaker coming out of that magnet system. And then later we asked ourselves, what is the mechanism behind this reduction of induction? And it is because copper is a very good inductor. So you put rings of copper around the voice coil, and it really locks in the flux, because the voice coil is a small electromagnet trying to interfere with the flux created by the permanent magnet. And the copper says, no, you can't. It's locked here. And had the copper been a perfect conductor with zero impedance, zero resistance, it would be totally locked. If it had been a superconductor, the flux would be totally locked. And you would just have the voice coil with zero inductance as a result. Not a reduction of a factor of 10, but a reduction of everything. Now it is so that silver is a better conductor, both of heat, but also of current, than copper. So it has roughly this 6, 8, 10% lower impedance than, of course, if you put it in, you get lower inductance. And what it translates to is that it has better detailing. It follows the tweeter much better.
Another question that I want to know is your strength throughout the world. As far as like the countries where you're certainly succeeding in terms of sales. Tell us a little bit about the country that you are killing it in, and maybe where the U.S. sits.
Yeah, I think we should first talk about U.S.
Okay.
Because American manufacturers are dominating the whole high-end audio market. And of course, I've worked for an American company for 20 years. I do know how difficult it is to introduce a product and get sales out of it in US, because you're not dealing with one country, you're dealing with 50 states, and I have learned over the years that each state have its own way of thinking,
it's a
own way of
country,
doing
yeah.
business.
Yes.
So it can be from one state to the next, it can be a total different world, and that was shocking. So it's the most difficult, but it's also the most powerful when it comes to the press. Because if you have the American press behind you, it's easier in the rest of the world. And also, you know, we have two of them when it comes to the printed magazines. You have Sheriff and Absolute Sound, and of course, they're still some of the biggest players in the world. So, so we had to clean up US a little bit because we made quite a few mistakes. So we had a Danish guy over there who have been there for nearly 30 years, Peter Hansen, and we do very well in US, and we have growth in US. It's a pretty big investment.
Yeah.
But then we're doing extremely well in Europe. And the biggest country we deal with is Germany. And Germany is maybe the second most difficult.
So Germany is number one for you in terms of sales.
Yeah.
That's shocking to me. I didn't expect that.
No,
Just because I see Germany as that country that is consuming what they produce. They're very close to what they make, and we have great audio brands coming out of Germany, right?
Absolutely.
And so I'm really, really surprised to see.
It's a little bit funny because there are brands in Germany you don't see outside
Germany.
Yes, I agreed. Agreed. They live there. Yes.
You know, when they go for the Munich show, we said, "Oh, I never heard about."
I
these
have not heard
brands."
of a lot of brands that I have seen that were German. Yes, I agreed.
But in general, in Europe, we are doing well, and it's also totally our biggest export go to whole Europe right now.
I think one thing that is very clear is that Germany is a lot more technology-driven country. So when you have something that from a technological standpoint stands out, the German press will readily accept it.
Got it.
So I think they are very product-driven, where I feel a little bit the American market and also right now in Asia is a little bit politically driven as well.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah,
I can agree.
Where we see the big players in the US are also playing politics and power politics.
Oh yeah.
And American companies are doing that, I think, to a higher degree than European companies. We try to make our products speak rather than playing power punches.
Unfortunately, that's been part of the American way. Not only just with business, but I think even with jobs, right? Internally.
So. Yeah,
like you could have the greatest talent, and if you're not in cahoots with someone that likes you, it could be your last day quickly. And so there is a lot of those politics that you have to play to stay on top. So I agree, and the audio industry have seen it as well. Like whether it be magazines with certain brands, only showcasing product with certain brands, and if you're not here, we're not going to accept you. There's a lot of that, as opposed to the European countries that are more like, we let our product do the talking. Let us just show you what we got.
Yeah, I mean, our only chance is that we have to do a better job. It's very simple.
Yeah. That's right, yes.
If you don't shine in US or around the world, we have no chances. We're just another manufacturer. That's also why, you know, the curiosity and the passion we have, it has to shine through everything we do.
Something that I want to make sure I don't leave out, which is a new product development, something that we have never seen come out of your brand, which I am excited to see in the future, hopefully next year at some point in the US.
Yeah.
And that is the creation of a new subwoofer.
Yeah.
So if you guys can follow us real quick, these guys are going to talk about what's special about this new subwoofer that you have. Ready? Come here. Come on, Mike.
I need to stand up.
Mike, you got to stand up, let my audience shine a light on it.
Bow down and do the talking. I don't think this is a representation of what we're going to introduce to the market. But this is a test bench. So these two cabinets, one in matte and one in shiny, is sort of like a precursor for what will come. So what is different about this is that most subwoofers on the market, they rely on building pressure. So they are maybe a closed cabinet maybe a reflex, but they try to build a bass as a pressure in the room. Here we have a slot-loaded dipole, and the target here is to put velocity into the air, create air motion rather than to create pressure. And by doing that, we take the stress away from the driver and let the driver work a lot easier. And that means that the speed we get from this is a lot better. So creating a subwoofer that actually times small drivers in a monitor, small mid-ranges, is a daunting task. And we have not really, in the course of the years, seen anything that can really do that. But I wanted to make a 2.1 system or 2.2 system because I think it's for a lot of people makes sense to have that in their world. Maybe they don't have room for big speakers, maybe they don't. So it's maybe easier to have a subwoofer. So a 2.1 system is very desirable from that aspect. But it needs to time. It needs to be able to play music. And the only way to do that was to go on a different path. The slot loaded creates the possibility of timing because you have the speed of the system. But also the crossover needs to have zero delay. And that rules out a DSP solution. DSPs, 20 milliseconds latency. And that's like, okay, you have a sub bass, but it's out there in the garage someplace because it's so delayed. Yeah. It's not really in sync with the music. The timing is not there. So when we created a product like the integrated amplifier, this is a preamplifier, but the integrated 880, we put in the crossover. We actually put it in already in the C580. We also have
in the old 580.
So we put them in, and we put them in to prepare for this. So we had the crossovers in our sort of like an add-on.
Right.
But we were not ready with this. It takes time to do things. So now we are getting ready, and then our electronics can support it as well. The AVIC electronics.
And right now they have, I believe, 4 or 6 drivers inside
There's
per side.
4 drivers. There's 4 8-inch woofers in this.
4 8-inch. Okay.
Yeah, with a carbon stiff membrane pushing like this and creating, and there's a slot where they play into the slot, and that means you push the air out here and you suck the air in the back, so it puts air in motion rather than creating pressure like most subwoofers do. And
I'm assuming you chose the 8-inch diameter of a subwoofer because you want the speed to be at the same level of your speakers.
You need a driver that is fast. If you take a big driver, you get something that is flexing. You get something that is inherently slow, and then the placement becomes difficult because if you have a slower sub because of a heavy driver, you need to pull the subs ahead of the system in order to time where you're sitting. So timing becomes an issue with a bigger driver.
They are going to have built-in amplification.
They will have the flexibility needed. So that means if you just have a line output on a preamp, you can use them because there will be a built-in filter in the subwoofer and an analog filter. And that will have similar to what we have in our preamp here, a crossover selectable, volume selectable. But it will not be like here, you can do everything with a remote control. It will be something you have to push buttons to set.
Got it.
So when you're not using our electronics, you lose flexibility or convenience, but you don't lose flexibility. It will still be.
And you'll be able to integrate it, by the way, with other types of loudspeakers. So his goal is not just to make him exclusive to Borison, right? He wants to have a product that can also perform with other brands. He was even mentioning to me that he feels this might be really good with Martin Logan. So again, I love the fact that you gave me that feedback because sometimes we're very centered around the rest of the product lineup, but there might be people out there that just want your subs because they have their own speakers, and that's great to have that ability.
There will be many that would like our subs because I think that everybody that wants to make a 2.1 or 2.2 system are facing the issue. It's very good for home theater, but it's not very good for music.
Agreed.
Because it doesn't time.
Agreed.
So most people that are looking into extending their bass down to the sub-regions, they don't have a subwoofer or an alternative on the market that can actually time. But you heard what this does.
Oh, absolutely. It blends beautiful. It disappears, just more body in the mid-range. I heard him actually briefly with the M3s. We did the entire experiment of no subs, and then we added the 4 subs. And it was like the room got larger, the mid-range had more body to it, the top end actually felt even, I dare to say, somehow more refined. I don't even know how that happens, but I just felt more stuff was inserted through that frequency range that I couldn't explain how everything evolves. I have loved the M3s, right? I've heard these speakers because of Next Level Hi-Fi. I think over the last 18 months, I've heard these speakers at shows, and I've always been blown away by them. I gotta say, always. But when I heard them with subs today, I cannot unhear what happened.
One thing that defines what we try to do is we try to put a level of explanation and a level of honesty into everything we do. And Lars pointed out to you that we are not so afraid of somebody copying. Because if somebody wants to copy where we go, they need to understand.
Right.
I think there's so many levels. You have seen some of the layers that we go through.
Yeah.
The impregnation of the coils, the selection of capacitors, all these things. And people need to understand in order to improve upon where we are. And I find that when companies change ownership, we often see them vanish. That's because the leaders of the company, the ones with the vision and the deep knowledge, they get out of it. And you can just hire somebody from the university and say, now next generation of speakers you will have to develop. It doesn't work that way. You need these. It takes how many years to get your experience?
Only 72 years.
I mean,
Only 72.
I mean, you need a long time in the business to understand the small things. And what you saw also when we put in the shorts or when we put on the resonator, it's really the small things that makes a whole world of difference.
Thank you, Michael, for having me in your home. Thank you, Lars. Really appreciate my time here. Has been incredible. You guys, again, are amazing hosts. I've learned so much, and I leave Denmark with a sad face because it's been one of the greatest experiences in my life, and all thanks to you guys, of course. So please subscribe, and you've gotten all the questions asked. Every single question was not left unanswered. So you should know now that they are very open and they want to be asked any question you may have. So for now, that's all I have. This is Jay's Audio Lab from Denmark signing out. Peace.
Take care.